The Bittboy's strength, I believe, is in its nostalgia factor, as well as its ability to play games for the Nintendo Entertainment System, the Game Boy, and the Game Boy Color. But what happens if the capabilities of the new Bittboy is expanded? What if I tell you that you can play Game Boy Advance, DOS, Box, Sega Mega Drive, SNES, WonderSwan, and PlayStation games in it? Don't believe me? Well, stick around and I'll show you that you can do just that. What's up, Dreamer Tribe? What's up, world? I am Vianca, and this is my first impressions review and sort of also a preview for the new Bittboy's version 2 custom firmware. As I've said in my review video for this handheld emulator, which you can watch right there via the card showing right about now, the Bittboy isn't the perfect handheld emulator. It has bugs and problems, and the shipping might put people off and get them to favor something else. Having said that, I do believe that it has a great potential, and it does, if only you knew the secrets to unlock it. And lucky for you guys, I'm here to divulge that secret. And if you guys are paying attention to the title of this video, you also may already know what that secret is. And of course, that secret is in the form of a custom firmware that is currently available and which you can download by heading to this link right here that I'm showing now. Installing a custom firmware might seem like a tremendous task, one that could be risky and potentially dangerous to whatever, console you're installing it to. Many other custom firmwares tend to warn users or potential users about that risk as well. Despite that very same warning being present in this custom firmware's web page, it isn't a complicated process as one might think. Neither is the setup for this to work. Following the simplified way the Bittboy does things, it's all a matter of following basic instructions and simply having the right tools and the patience. Patience is very much important in stuff like this to modify the new Bittboy. Also, knowing what version of the handheld emulator you have is a very important thing if you're trying to or attempting to install a custom firmware. Now, I have what they call the version 2 Bittboy, and I'm going to be talking about the custom firmware that is for the version 2, and also in the viewpoint of one who obviously only has the version 2 of the Bittboy. So yeah, don't go asking me about, custom firmwares for the version 1 because I have no idea how to modify that. I don't know if you have to follow the same instructions as you do for the version 2, so I'm sorry, but you can find all that information in the website I have provided earlier. Anyways, as I have said, it's simple enough. The custom firmware, installing the custom firmware for the Bittboy is simple enough to install and would take you, I think, no more than 10 to 15 minutes tops. That depends on how long it would take to mount the custom firmware's image, and also how fast your internet connection is for downloading the tools or the necessary files in order to, customize your Bittboy. Now, despite the simplicity of the instructions for installing the custom firmware for the version 2, what it does is open a lot of gaming possibilities for the Bittboy. Like I've said in my introduction in this video, making use of a custom firmware for your Bittboy lets you play games you won't normally be able to when using it right out of the box. Now, it does require you to be more thorough with your file placements compared to the way that you can just drag and drop the files into the root folder of the SD card for your Bittboy. You would also need to flash the SD card, so you have to remember that you need to back up the files in the SD card prior to that if you don't want to lose any of the data you have within it. You also need at least an 8GB SD card in order to pull this off. Well, apart from that, what can you do with the Bittboy's custom firmware? Well, first off, with the custom firmware, you can change how the user interface looks. There are already predefined themes built within the custom firmware, and they make the interface look more pleasing and easier to navigate. Each additional emulator also have their own settings that you can tweak to your liking. You can also opt to scale the display of each of them, and I think most of us have it on full screen, which makes the game look better, because if you do not switch it to full screen, you will have sort of a frame in your gameplay. So if you're playing it on a Game Boy Advance, or you're playing a Game Boy Advance game using the new emulator built into the Bittboy's custom firmware, then you will get a frame that is similar to the screen of the Game Boy Advance. Now, apart from the ROMs that I have mentioned from the base or the vanilla emulators found within the Bittboy right off the box, I only have games for the Game Boy Advance, WonderSwan, SNES, and the PlayStation, so I can only test the emulators for them, and what I found is truly incredible. Considering that this is the Bittboy we're talking about. There is barely any screen artifacts in the games that I have tried for those additional emulators. The sound, understandably, because this is no hardware mod, it doesn't sound all that good, but I didn't experience any sound issues in the form of lags or stutterings in the games I have tested out. And that's another point, there is barely any lags at all. And granted, I didn't really test out any of those high octane games. Most games I have are RPGs, and so I can't say for certain if there are any of the other games that require more oomph in them, if those have any actual problems. Now, the button configurations are a little bit different per emulator. Even in the main user interface of the custom firmware, they have their own button configuration, so it can be a little confusing at the beginning because you would have to learn which button does what. It's really different from the base or the vanilla Bittboy. The only snag or problem I found came in the form of exiting the emulators. The Bittboy would seemingly freeze or hang on a black screen, and I would be forced to shut off the Bittboy instead of being thrown right back into the custom firmware's main menu. It's something I already notified the devs of the custom firmware, and I was told that it has something to do with the ROMs bin folder being plentiful. Now, I don't know how many is too much in that regards. I wasn't given a clear-cut answer in regards to that, so expect another video update when it comes to these problems, and of course I will be making another video when a new version of this custom firmware comes out. Overall, this custom firmware did indeed breathe a new life into my Bittboy, which was gathering, dust for a while. It allowed me to play games, or more games, and emulate them in a way that I didn't think was possible or didn't expect, because again, in my review, I stated that I googled about this hack or the modifications for the new Bittboy, and I found none, so you can expect my surprise or understand my surprise when I finally did stumble into this custom firmware. Now, there is more in store for this custom firmware. There are more bug fixes, and in my understanding, more features are going to be rolled out in the future, and I for one can't wait to see what those are. If you want to learn more about modding the Bittboy, again, just head over to Jutli's Bittboy news, tips, guides, and mods website, the link of which is now flashing in the screen, and it can also be found on the video description below. And that about wraps up my quick first impression video for the V2 custom firmware, or the V2 Bittboy custom firmware. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Until then, you guys know the drill. Dream on, fly on. Bye bye now. What's up, Dreamer Tribe? What's up, world? I am Bianca, and thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed the content of this video, don't forget to hit that thumbs up button to let me know. And also, if you haven't subscribed yet and you want to be a part of the Dreamer Tribe, just hit on that subscribe button. We also have tons of different content here on my channel, so be sure to check those out. Until the next video, dream on, fly on.